Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We will reconvene the Board of Finance budget hearing for the 2016-2017 budget. This is February 17th, approximately 6:35, and tonight we will address the Education Operations Board of Education. Everyone? Okay. All of you have been here before, with the exception of one. And so I'll open the floor, and if you'd like to make a presentation or a statement prior to our...
Sure. Okay, so I'm Sue Glennon. I'm Chair of the Board of Ed. Thank you, Brian, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening regarding our proposed budget for the 2016-17 school year. I do have some opening remarks before turning the presentation over to Dr. Pieser, Mr. Riccitelli, and Mr. Burt, our new Assistant Superintendent. So you have before you a budget request that reflects a .853 increase, one of the lowest increases in the past dozen years. This is a budget I feel particularly good about because after review and discussion at 3 budget workshops, it was unanimously approved by my fellow board members. It reflects the needs of the school district as we move forward to sustain and strengthen the systems and programs that have been put in place in recent years. I've given you each a copy of our Green District Highlights brochure, which points to just some of the initiatives made possible by the generous financial support we have received from city leaders and taxpayers, for which we are truly grateful. Milford Public Schools continues to move in a positive direction. Students challenge themselves with rigorous coursework, and even our youngest impress us with their knowledge and skills. It is important that we have the resources to allow us to maintain this momentum as we continually seek to improve by offering relevant coursework for students and providing professional growth opportunities for staff, while also seeking better and more efficient ways to conduct our business. It is my hope that our community will continue to place a high value on the education of our children, and I hope you will recognize the board's commitment to bringing before you a budget that truly addresses our needs. So we would now like to share with you the major requests in the proposed budget and where we found savings within the existing budget to cover the costs, and then we can answer any questions you might have. Thank you. I'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Pieser.
Thank you, Mrs. Glennon, and thank you to the members of the Board of Finance. We're delighted to be here this evening. So I'd like to just echo a few of the comments that were made by Mrs. Glennon and then get into the actual requests that we are making in the budget and the savings. I want to reiterate the primary purpose of our budget, the design of the budget this year, and that is really to sustain and strengthen all that we have been engaged in for the last 4 years. We are enormously appreciative of the Board of Finance, the Board of Aldermen, the Mayor, for the enormous support that we've received in the last 4 years, which has brought us to this particular point and has enabled us in this budget then to ask for very little and at the same time to reduce significantly. Just so to give further thanks to you, I just want to just say some of the things that we have been able to pursue in the last 4 years because of your support. So the most recent reconfiguration, so all of our schools are K-5. We've had significant expansion of our elective programs in our high schools. We've had new programs, a new math investigations program at the elementary and readers and writers workshop. Many more advanced placement courses at the high school. We have formal academic interventions at each of the levels, the most recent being the high school academic centers that went into place this year. We have additional pre-K classrooms. We have ongoing professional development, which is not a given in many districts. Science and tech ed equipment for the technology education classes at the high school. Lots of instructional technology that most recently this year in all of our 3 through 5 classrooms. Every 3 through 5 classroom has 9 Chromebooks in its classroom. So teachers, if you can imagine, even if they have 22, 23 students, to be able to have 9 of them working on computers and meanwhile the other students working in groups on different kinds of work. A lot of equipment for our art programs as well as our music programs. library books, textbooks, new textbooks, classroom furniture and equipment, and of course, lots of enhancement for building safety. And we could go on further, but it's just been tremendous, the support that has been given to us. And I am cognizant of it, we are all cognizant of it, and so in building this budget, we were just really mindful of that and said, okay, we are in a position now to start to pull back some of those resources because we feel we can, we have what we need and we can, move forward with that. So with that, what I'd like to do is to take you through, you all have a synthesis of our budget request and the major drivers. So I'm going to take you through that, and please feel free to ask questions. And then I'll take you through the savings and a recap. Again, the overall theme was to sustain and strengthen programs, but we have three kind of major categories of the budget requests: student learning, security and climate, and then other drivers. Under student learning, dollar-wise, we're asking for very little, but what it entails, we think, is really going to make a difference. We would like to have a pre-K program at Pumpkin Delight, specifically Pumpkin, and it will be different than the pre-K programs that we currently have in place. It's a half-day program, so we would run a morning session with a group of students and an afternoon session with a different group of students. The reason why we want to zero in on Pumpkin Delight is Pumpkin Delight has our neediest children, has the highest percentage of free and reduced lunch students in the school, in the district. And we really feel that pre-K could help immensely, targeting a number of children the year before they go into kindergarten, so that they would be ready for kindergarten. The focus would be primarily literacy with some numeracy. I don't want you to think that it's all academics, because we are really cognizant of the age of the children and would really want to engage them in play, etc. So it's an enjoyable experience, but we really believe we can make a difference for these kids in helping them then be ready to succeed in kindergarten. So you can see the cost for that for this first year is no cost to the budget. And the reason for that is there are monies in the special education pre-K tuition account. In our pre-K special ed program, there are typical children who attend that program and they pay tuition to be a part of that. So what we want to do is take tuition monies from that program that'll cover the cost of the teacher, of 2 professionals, and of the furniture and supplies that are needed to set up the classroom. So there's no cost in the general budget for that.
Would you mind if I interrupt as you go?
Go right ahead.
This is going to get
Sure.
overwhelming at some point in time. You said for the first year, there's no cost. What about future years?
Well, in the future, we wouldn't, the instructional supplies, et cetera, none. The teacher and paraprofessional, we may bring it forth in the general budget, but it may also be able to, some of it be covered by tuitions in the future. But that's something that we're not sure of, but we knew absolutely for sure going forward the first year, there would be no cost.
What is the cost? Even though it's no cost, there is a cost.
Well, one teacher, which would be, we would have built in $62,000. $62,500. Paraprofessionals.
20,000 each.
Okay.
So 40,000. And probably $5,000 to $10,000 to get the classroom up and running with equipment.
That'll be under the
10,000.
the 6,100, 7,350?
Correct.
Okay. That's the salary. Now, on top of that, what do we have for benefits? That's not included in those figures, right?
Correct. Oh, and as you know, the benefits are carried on the city side of the budget. So
Right, but that's still not budget.
It is. Well, it is. It
You know,
is. There's no question about that.
And what do you average out, do you think, Jim, for Dr. Feeser? A single person?
For benefits,
Yeah.
and
I
Peter-
saw it somewhere
Peter
in
Mayor
here.
can elaborate on this. It's hard to put a dollar amount on what a teacher's going to cost in those benefits because we're self-insured and we pay the doctor bills in effect. So,
Right.
that particular teacher may not cost anything that particular year, or maybe somebody.
But we do, no, when we average out all the teachers in the whole bundle, and it comes out, this is the average cost and it's a rough estimate, like everything in this budget.
Right. Well,
So we've got to consider,
The COBRA rate or the allocation rate,
uh,
they're almost the same. There's a few $100s difference. The allocation rate is generally a little bit less than the COBRA rate.
mhm.
And the COBRA rate for a family is approximately $27,000, Peter. For a couple is approximately 16, 17?
A couple slightly less. You figure approximately, 2,700 a month for a family, COBRA rate.
Mhm.
And the allocation rate's slightly less than that for a
See,
family.
this is the,
But total benefits, what are they, 15%, Peter?
20% of
Salary,
the
15, 20%?
15-20%.
All right, that's what he really,
Yeah.
he's really asking.
And again, we're not to belabor this point, but the first year, we know we can cover it.
right,
In future years, with tuitions from this program itself and continued tuition from the existing pre-K program, we feel confident that we'll be able to continue to provide that pre-K at Pumpkin Delight School at no cost to the general budget.
just for salary.
Not even for salary, because we believe that we'll be able to cover it with
Tuition.
new tuitions for that program
Mhm.
and tuitions from the existing pre-K program, special ed pre-K program.
Okay, thank you
I
very
was,
much.
I erred in that, or I just was remiss in not saying that we will be charging tuition for students who attend this program.
Mhm.
So, but we can't be sure how much that's gonna bring in this first year, but that's what Mr. Chitelli is talking about in future years.
But these are students that are in the food program, are they not? Free lunches and all, so, and under the state law, you can't charge those people tuition, can you?
Well, if it's our program, we can. Just like there may be some of those children who might be attending the special ed program as typical kids, they still would pay tuition.
It may be on a sliding scale.
You're right, they're not paying the same tuition if they were in a food
And they're
program
not all
or
necessarily.
subsidized in any way.
Right, they're not all necessarily on the food program.
Right, I know that, yeah. Okay, but there's pot factors in the whole picture as far as, okay, thank you.
That's all right, thank you.
I'm just going to continue on that theme for 1 second. Is the long-range plan to have pre-K throughout the system at some point in the future?
That's never been really decided by the Board of Ed. I know that's an issue that the board at some point might take up.
Our initial, through the long-range planning process, our desire was to see pre-K distributed throughout the district rather than have pre-K in one, all the classes in one
Right.
school. We have not had a specific conversation about how far to go with the expansion of pre-K, but the discussion did revolve around having room in our schools so that we could expand our pre-K program.
So currently it's special ed pre-K and then this, call it a pilot.
Well, there's a special ed pre-K, we have some ready-to-learn full-day classes that are largely grant-funded.
Okay.
And then we have, this would be a new program.
A new program. Okay. Thank you.
So we are also wanting to develop a computer science career pathway. When the board formed the long-range planning committee, at this point, I believe that was 3 years ago, when that committee came together, they really wanted to see, they didn't call them career pathways, but they wanted to see some pathways or some kind of themes that students could pursue from the middle school and the high school. And the board kind of took that idea and directed us to establish actually 2 career pathways for the next school year. But we feel that we can confidently do one, and then we asked, could we delay a year for the second? So the first one that we really want to do is a computer science career pathway, which we begin in the middle school simultaneously with the high school. So like 7th grade and 9th grade. What we would need are teachers, obviously, and instructional materials. But the teachers, we feel we can absorb the cost of that by redeploying existing staff, both at the high school and at the middle schools, every one of the middle schools, that we don't need to hire new staff for this. And the other thing is that what kids will do then is in the middle school, They will be taking coding and/or robotics as they move through the middle school. And then in the high school, and it's in the brochure here that you were given, they would begin with basic computer science, and then there are other courses that they could pursue. This is not a lockstep program where you're in it and you can't get out. You know, students may take something in the middle school and then decide they really want to pursue anything in the high school. Or they may take 1 or 2 courses in the high school, but then say they, but there is the idea that if kids really wanted to zero in on computer science, that there would be several courses available for them in the high school. So for next year, or in this current budget, we really are asking for $4,500 for instructional materials. And you may say, how could that be so little? Well, one of the things, the coding, for example, program that students would be involved in, our supervisor of science and tech ed, she's done extensive research, and there is a phenomenal program that's online that's free, that she says will be tremendous for kids. So, there's a lot, the robotics, we've been doing some robotics already in the district, so there's not gonna be a whole lot of cost there. In the high school, the introduction to computer science, we're okay in terms of, materials for that, the teacher, et cetera. So really, for the first year, we are not anticipating that there are gonna be any more need than $4,500.
Question in this area. Number of teachers are gonna be involved in this.
Well, initially, there would be, since it's in each of the 3 high schools, there would be a teacher, but I can't say yet whether it would be full-time.
Well, it can't be that specific because we're taking some of our existing computer courses and changing them to an AP course, so we already have those faculty on staff. And again, if you look at the variety of courses that are in there, those are courses we already offer. And then at the middle school, we already have tech ed teachers in each of the middle schools, and we offer tech ed in 7th and 8th grade. So we feel that we can use existing staff primarily, maybe some addition, again, reallocating from different locations to enhance those programs. But we're doing a lot of this already. That's why we really chose this pathway, is because a lot of the materials, a lot of the expertise, and a lot of the programming is already there. So it was really just fine tuning it and reallocating it, and then making it clear what the actual pathway is.
And I took your question to mean, like, what was the FTE? The reason why I hesitated is that we're going to redeploy, but I don't think necessarily that the teachers in the middle school will be teaching this computer pieces all day.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a portion of their assignments, and then they would be teaching something else as well.
What are the kids gonna get in the high school level? The middle school is not too interested, but at the high school level, what kind of credits are they gonna get for taking these programs?
Well, they're full year courses, so there's, they're listed here. I'm sorry,
It is a
well, the
full
credits actually are listed here. Some of them are full year and some of them are half year
Oh,
courses.
there's the credits, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
Okay.
So the robotics, and actually robotics, we don't have those courses, but they're already taught in tech ed classes. If you go into any of the tech ed classes, the kids are already learning robotics, but this would be formal courses in them.
What do they have to give up when they're taking this?
Other electives?
It's all elective, that's
These
right.
are all elective,
elective.
all elective courses.
Okay.
We are also asking for a language lab for East Shore Middle School. We put a language lab into West Shore last year, so this is the second year at West Shore. And we want to put a language lab into East Shore and then the following year, Harborside. The cost is $36,500. That's more than we spent at West Shore, only because we cobbled together existing furniture for West Shore. And it isn't necessarily the best, so they really need to have decent tables and chairs, and so that's where the cost is higher than it was at West Shore. The language labs, some of you may have experienced language labs in school. I certainly did. Not what shall I say, exciting experience, as I recall. These are very different language labs. First of all, you can use them for any language. Secondly, they can be interactive, and so if we were all in the lab right now, three of you might be working together on something, so the three of you in the lab can communicate with one another and work on a project, and if a teacher wanted to check in from her station, she can do that. Meanwhile, the two of you might be taking some kind of an assessment, you know, you and I might be having a conversation. In other words, it can be individualized, and there's all kinds of things that can be done. Some of the work that students do in the language lab can actually be saved, so that kids can go back in and sort of measure their own progress, you know, as they move through the course. And the other thing is, the kind of language labs that we want to put into the middle schools, the high schools now have. So it would be, kids would be familiar going into the high school and continuing with their language. The other change is that now the AP language classes require the use of this kind of a lab for kids to complete the exams for advanced placement. So we just think it's a really good move to put it into the middle schools. A third request is every 10 years, each of the high schools go through an accreditation process with the New England Association of Schools and Colleges. So we are requesting $25,000. That's a one-time cost. Really what that cost is, it's to put all the visiting team members up in a hotel.
I got a special place for
Do you?
them. Howard Johnson, $62.
Gotcha. They have to have large enough meeting room, and they have to provide meals, breakfast and dinner. But they're here Sunday, they come on Sunday and they stay until Wednesday. So, and usually I'm anticipating it would probably be about 15 people. So that's an estimated cost. Under security and climate, the one request is for a school resource officer. We've talked about this before. The existing SROs that we have in the schools are invaluable. The board requested an assessment of the SROs, and there was a presentation made last August to the board, which included a lot of data points on the interventions that SROs have engaged in, the impact, student testimony. Anyways, there was no doubt at the end of that meeting that the support from the Board of Ed was there, just even hearing of the success of the SROs. They very much are part of the climate and culture of the school. When I say they're very much also a part of the faculty, I don't mean to say that they're faculty, but they really integrate with the staff. On their own, they attend a lot of different activities, basketball games, plays, etc. That's not required, but they do in support of the kids, etc. So that's a request that we're making, and the amount that's there is half the cost of what it would be to enable with the police paying the other side.
That's the assumption that the police cooperate on this, right?
Right. When we put this into the budget, the police had not put their budget yet together, but we had spoken with the chief to say, because we wouldn't have done it without having spoken with him.
And just so you know, again, your board can make the adjustments in the ultimate budget, and as can the Board of Aldermen, but I think this is a great program, and if financial constraints were not an issue, it would likely be funded. But back in October, I did give all of our city departments marching orders to hold the line, and based on that, the police department did not come in with a recommendation to fund additional SROs. Dr. Fieser and I had a conversation recently about the fact that the $40,000 is approximately the same amount as the language lab. The proposal for the Board of Ed is to fund the language lab this year at East Shore. Last year they funded it at West Shore. Harborside is still yet to come. Again, if this board thought it wise to fund 2 this year, because it's the same approximate amount as the portion of the school security officer, those could be some of the conversations you have with the Board of Education, and within your deliberations. I fund 2 language labs this year as opposed to 1 this year and 1 next year.
Sounds good,
Part of the discussion.
part of the discussion. All
And then
right.
there were 2 other budget drivers. One was $280,000 for additional buses, and this was to support a change in the Board of Ed policy in which the walking distance was reduced at both the high school and middle schools. And so this is the estimated cost of the additional buses to accommodate more students taking the bus.
This area I'd like to discuss pretty good. How many additional buses is this including?
Going off my memory, we anticipate that there's approximately 250 students,
250?
right, approximately, between the high
Right.
school and middle school. The high school current walking distance is 2 miles, it would be reduced to 1.5 miles.
Mhm.
And the current middle school walking distance is 1.5 miles, and it would be reduced to 1. So we took the current population, moved it forward 1 year, and then looked at where those students live, and came up with approximately 250 additional students. And where they live, we plotted how many more bus runs we would need. I can get you the exact number of runs that we estimated, but in our estimation, there's a wide range, because there's many variables that can take place. Students can move in and out of the district, things like that. But there's a wide range. It's $280,000 we believe is a conservative estimate, but it's one that will cover the cost of the new policy.
Now, each bus route in the city, bus has 66 students. Every bus has 66 students. I'm not including sick kids and kids that decide to go, but on the average day,
No.
are those buses completely full?
No. We have, there's different age groups. Basically, we
Right.
use 50 for high school, middle school and high school. That's the capacity of a school bus. The elementary schools can get up to 66.
Mhm.
The maximum is 71,
Mhm.
or there's actually 3 buses in the district that can hold 83.
Mhm.
But those are the little kids, where you can fit 3 in a seat.
Right.
High school and middle schoolers, it's approximately 50 students, but they're not filled to capacity. And this gets very complicated. We've
Right.
discussed it with the board for, many years. But the biggest constraint of all is there's a 30-minute window between the time that a bus can, from the time a bus starts its first run to the time it has to get to the next school. Because each of our schools, we have 4 start times. So to get maximum efficiency out of a bus, we pay a set amount per bus per day.
Mhm.
And to get maximum efficiency, we tried to get 3 runs or 3 tiers out of each bus. So each bus would presumably start with a high school run, do a middle school run, and then end with an elementary run. Or it may do a high school, skip the middle school, and then do 2 elementaries, depending on where the bus is going, where it's dropping off, and where its next run is. So the constraint in how many students you can put on that bus is based upon the 30-minute window and how far that bus has to travel. So a bus, a prime example, a bus that picks up at Robert Treat Apartments fills up really 1 bus run for
Mhm.
elementary school. So that bus has really a 10-minute window, and then it can move on to its next run, and that bus is full. Another run in North Milford, it has to go a long distance between pickups, and you're only picking up 1 or 2 children at each stop. So that bus, in that 30-minute window, may only be able to get 15 to 20 students.
Okay, that's my point right there, Jim.
Yeah.
Say on Wheelers Farms Road, I know that was an area that they complained that they have to walk on that road, et cetera, et cetera. Now, do you know how many students, say for example, on Wheelers Farms Road, are gonna be picked up now that weren't being picked up? In other
Yeah.
words, that's gonna be a less full bus coming down from Wheeler's Farms for the high school students, I'm almost sure.
Well, the high school wouldn't be involved with that because the high schools are so far away from there, so we're only talking a half.
That's
mile.
right, you're right, you're right. So it'd be just the middle school or the grammar school involved.
Just middle school and high school are part of this change to the policy. Elementary stays the same.
And-
Oh, that's
and-
right,
And
okay.
there's so many factors that go into it. There's gonna be very little change, for instance, at Harborside,
Mhm.
because most of the students at Harborside are already bused, and that's because of the location and the
Right.
students that are north of the post road. Because students, there's a hazardous condition, there's a part in the policy which is based upon state guidelines, and students of middle school age cannot cross the post road. So any student that goes to Harborside, north of the post road, is automatically bused anyway. So, I mean, there's so many different factors that go into this, but we actually took every single student,
I figured.
plotted them on the map, and said, will they be an additional student on the bus next year? And based upon that, we converted that to a number of additional runs, and then the dollars that would be associated with that.
Okay. I'm covered. Thank you.
And the last driver is actually $181,000 for natural gas. And this was not for additional consumption. This is really due to a budget error that we made in the current budget. So the city had increased the cost of natural gas as a result of their bid for this current school year, and we failed to put it into our budget. It was just an oversight on our part. So what we have done is determined, okay, what's it gonna cost in terms of next year, the natural gas in light of the increases? And we have put in the amount that we believe the natural gas will cost. So then your question might be, well, how are you gonna cover the cost this year, because we're in a deficit? And you can answer that.
Okay, we've identified savings within the utilities accounts. And, you know, as Dr. Fieser said, it was an oversight on our part. The city went out to bid in November. We received an email from the purchasing agent telling us that the price was going up. It actually went up 29.3%. And that was around the time in November when we were putting our budget together. And just quite honestly, to be perfectly honest, we just missed that email and did not build it into the 15-16 budget. So we're playing catch-up. And then the 16-17 budget is already, it's a greater percent of increase over the 15-16 budget. And so that's the difference in the cost. For this year, how we're going to cover it, we believe that we will have small surpluses in electricity. We believe we'll have small surplus in water. And we know we're going to have a surplus in gasoline. And so that's how we're going to cover it for this current fiscal year. And then next fiscal year, we built the increase into the budget. And it's not, as Dr. Fieser said, it's not increased consumption, it's to correct the oversight on our part.
What's the correction for this fiscal year that we're in now?
You just hold on for 1 second, I can give you that.
Well, he's looking, Peter,
Yeah.
I thought bids go out in August.
The gas might be at a different time frame.
No, I mean, the natural gas, oh, that
Yes,
is
I'm not
the same time,
100% sure.
I guess the natural gas would come in November.
November?
Actually, the purchasing agent goes out when it's strategically advantageous to go out. That particular one, usually it's around October or November.
Mm.
That particular one was, I believe, the end of October, and we got the notice in November.
I hope it goes up pretty soon. It's a good level right now.
And, I will find it.
That's right. Yeah, it's annual, right? It's annual, right? We better get, Peter, just as a point of information, I think we better get Dan up on the bids for oil and the gas now, because Syria and Russia just decided now to stop production at one level now. How dare we want to visit today?
No, I have a question. I know that the Board of Ed just worked to install a pump on the Oldgate Lane site
For gasoline.
for gasoline for the buses,
No, that actually for diesel.
for diesel.
Yes.
Is that part, do you put that up for the city bid, or is that, or does the bus company purchase that unto itself?
No, we lock into the city bid. That's increased gallonage that the city can put on its bid, which presumably would get you a better price because we're adding 100,000 gallons of diesel to the city's bid. So last year's price includes our 100,000 gallons, and we'll do that again when they go out again. And that saves us, that allows us to buy at the bid rate rather than obviously the wholesale rate, and we don't pay the taxes, right, which we receive some of it back, but we don't receive all of it back. But I'm sorry,
2336.
thank you.
Thank
Okay, so we anticipate at the halfway point of the budget year, when we do quarterly reports to the board. So at our midway point after the second quarter, we anticipated that the deficit in the natural gas account would be $94,262.
It's gonna be 188.
Those 2 quarters end when, December?
Correct. We're on the fiscal year.
Okay, right.
So those are our requests, which, if we look at student learning and security, that's $106,000 out of $567,000. For just the 2 other drivers that moved that amount up to $500,000. So what I'd like to do now is to just go through where we found savings, which we are really proud, quite frankly, of how much how much savings we were able to find. First and foremost, if you remember last year, as part of the budget for reconfiguration, which was about 1.9 million, there were one-time costs that were built into that, and we committed to making sure that we would return that money, to reduce it from the budget. So what you have here on this first set of figures are the elementary reconfiguration one-time cost, which amounted to $427,500. And then there's all the breakdown there, everything from overtime to building projects, library media center, collections, musical instruments, etc. Those were all, again, one time.
Did you actually spend 427,000?
We did,
You did?
in the reconfiguration, we did. The staff reductions, the overall net reduction is 9.4 full-time equivalent teachers, and over to the right is the breakdown. So 3.9 regular ed teachers, 3.5 special ed teachers, and then 2.0 pre-K teachers, which will be funded by the Ready to Learn. So those are being moved out of the general budget, but those 2 positions aren't really being eliminated. They're being picked up by tuitions, because people pay tuition to have their children be a part of the Ready to Learn. And then we looked at the instructional support budgets, of which there are many, because again, there has been so much support that has been given to us over the last 4 years, and we look to, where we might find savings, and as you can see, we found a significant, $500,000 under instructional support, from curriculum work to instructional supplies, textbooks, etc., library books, professional development, and technology. The 3 asterisks, instructional supplies, library books, and professional development, the amounts that are reduced in that section are over and above what we returned as part of the one-time costs, because there's money up at the top, and then this is additional fund savings that we found. So just in the instructional area, and I have to pay tribute to Mr. Burt, who came in and was handed the budget and said, you need to really take a good analysis of this, et cetera, we were able to come up with over $500,000 in savings in that area. And then in some other major reductions, non-instructional supplies, $26,000, and capital equipment, $84,000 for another $111,000.
Technology, what is that? Is that
All year,
equipment,
It's equipment.
just strictly
It's
equipment?
And again, we've had so much support in equipment that when we talked with the IT people, they felt that pretty much that what we have, we can sustain, but actually some of the costs we could reduce. Some, because it's primarily equipment, but a lot has also gone into the hubs, the infrastructure pieces, in order to expand the bandwidth, for example. So all of our schools are, have wireless, Wi-Fi, capability, and wireless capability. And that's, not every district in the state has that, and that's really served us well.
The textbook adoption, excuse me, Joe.
So so that's hardware or hardware, software, or both?
Primarily, this is equipment that would be.
It's hardware. That's become obsolete, really.
I'm sorry?
Hardware that's become obsolete.
For the most part, this is new adoption of technologies. I think Dr. Fieser mentioned before the Chromebooks. It's a really, it's a good solution for students because it's a relatively inexpensive, it's very versatile, and it ties into a lot of our educational initiatives. And I've heard of Google Cloud or Google Drive, or Google Docs, or Google Classroom.
But the savings is from obsolete stuff that we no longer need, or?
We're no longer requesting those additional equipment.
We're ready to use what we have, we want to use what we have now.
Right.
And really get a handle on what we have
Right.
before we expand any further.
So the amount that you see here
Right.
in red is, that's the amount less than the current 15-16 budget.
In other words,
We're requesting.
in other words, we spent it in 15-16, we're not gonna spend it in 16-17.
We're spending some, but not as much as we have been.
Not as much.
Correct. You'll see when we move in, there's a line item for computers, and there's money in there.
Right.
Because some of them have to be, replaced,
Right.
every so many years.
Right.
But what the huge push for the last 2 or 3 years has been to increase the classroom equipment for kids across the entire system. So we've added labs, many labs at the high schools, labs in the middle schools. We've even
Right.
put a lab in each of the elementary schools. So for example,
Right.
and then we've had additional computers that were added, and then we've, again, increased the infrastructure. So we've been doing a lot of that, some of it with grants from the state, matching grants that the board has supported.
Okay.
But we're to a point of where we don't have to request as much as we have been. So we've reduced the requests.
Okay. All right.
And just a similar question on textbook adoptions. Is that a cost that's associated with a new textbook?
New
When you
textbooks.
switch into-
And there's been a significant number of new textbooks in the last 4 years. And it's not that we're not gonna purchase more textbooks, but there are not as many new ones that we have to purchase. So that's where that big reduction is.
Thank you.
So if I could just add as a way of explanation, then this is one way that the board kind of looked at it. Rather than just rolling over the numbers from last year, they went and looked at each line item and said, okay, do we need that much this year? And these were the areas where they said, no, we don't need to spend in 2016 as much as we spent in 2015-16.
Okay. Are you gonna spend this money in 15-16 though?
It's budgeted, yes, it's budgeted.
You are.
Yes.
Okay.
So the savings amounted to $1,600,000, which helped immensely in bringing down the cost of the budget and enabling us to come in with a 0.835%. And you see then the summary overall, what for the 2015-16 budget was or is, and then what we're proposing, the difference. And then our request versus our savings. So, when all is said and done, I would just simply, again, echo what Mrs. Glennon said. I mean, we really feel good about this budget. I've had some people who have said to us, in fact, I shared with the mayor, that I had some people say to us, you know, why are you coming in so low? If you're gonna come in low, come in during an election year. But that's not how we operate. You know, we really looked at this from the perspective of, you know, feeling very good at the support that has been provided to us over the last 4 years and being in a position to say, we can really scale back at this point and bring in the budget that we were able to bring in, while still, you know, making some requests that we think are really gonna make a difference for kids. So with that,
Could you give me the figure, the reconfiguration cost, what percentage was that, do you know offhand for the 15, 16?
I know it was close to 1.9 million total
Yes.
that we put into the budget for this year.
For that 15, 16 period?
Correct, of which the 400 and some
Right.
were one-time costs.
And what percentage would that have been, roughly?
Yeah, I don't have it.
I know,
Certainly
I
can
can't
provide it
remember
to you.
either, I remember going through it.
Yeah. We can get you that.
What percentage was? And what is this for,
Yeah, it probably could be.
Might be right in the letter.
It was in the letter.
yeah, I didn't bring my old book. You know, like.
It was the first thing that was,
Yeah, what percentage this is in comparison basis, just the future.
I know you gave us a handout, Jeff still has
Yeah, I do too. I just have to, I have to dig. I may have it here, or I probably have it downstairs.
Just a roughly, we don't need it today, Jimmy, just, if you don't mind.
I can figure it out right now.
Well, thank you for your thorough presentation.
Yeah.
If there's anything else you'd like to present, you can do so. Otherwise, we, as you know, we're creatures of habit. We have a way of going through the budget. So I think what we'd like to do is go through each series of the Board of Education budget. It moves along relatively quickly, I think, because it's very structured. And for members of the board, if anyone has any questions as we move through the budget items, you know, the floor is open, so we can certainly address it.
Right, I have that number. It's,
Yeah.
Joe, it's 2.17% of last year's budget was dedicated to reconfiguration.
Is that the increase, percentage of the increase, or percentage of the total budget?
That was the percentage. The number, yeah, so actually, it's over
1% increase over the previous budget.
It's like 2.5 million, that would have been 2.5 million, right?
prior year.
Right. Let me give you the percentage of the adopted budget.
Check my notes. Because I remember you did break it down last year as to how much was allocated toward the reconfiguration.
.12. The 1,937,000 was the cost of reconfiguration, and the total budget was, the total adopted budget was 91,010,638, which is 2.12%, so roughly 2% of
So the
last year's
whole
budget,
increase of the budget last year was strictly the configuration then?
pretty much. Yeah.
Good, so we don't need an increase this year then? That's my logic. Okay.
That's the bottom line, Joe.
Huh?
That's the bottom line, Joe.
That's the bottom line. Brian, I'd like to just run the numeric, Roman numeral areas first, just quickly run through.
Absolutely.
That's on page. I will need to look at page, unless you want to. These are
Where would
just
you like
the
to start,
summaries.
Joe? What page?
The only one I need is 9.
Okay, we're looking at Roman numeral 9 of the budget. If you just bear with me so I can find it. This is the summary section. Okay.
Life insurance, why is that a major increase?
We were locked into a 3-year fixed price, and that ended this current year, so this is the increase.
On life insurance?
On life, some of our employees, we contribute to their life insurance.
Right.
Most employees pay for the life insurance.
Right.
But where it is a benefit that they, which their contract gives them, it's, I don't want to say it's only an increase of $22,000, but it's a $22,000 increase to the budget, which was 4.6%.
Is this out to bid?
No, we didn't go out to bid. It's, the life insurance, cost, as I said, we were locked in for 3 years.
Right.
So we didn't have an increase in life insurance for 3 years, except if we had added employees. And actually, because we had less employees, it went down for the previous 3 years. But this year, it went up. So that's the difference.
Yeah, because 3 years ago, we had less, many more employees than we do today. And life insurance is like the cheapest part of any insurance system.
That's,
This is not whole life either, this is all term insurance.
yeah.
Wow. I think this should be up to bid, Jim, really. Absolutely. Huh?
The problem you have is it depends on age, right?
Yeah, but it
The
doesn't matter.
population aging in the seniors group.
It isn't, and we also had some bad experience.
Well, experience wouldn't be an under life.
With the
Shouldn't
number,
be.
with the number of policies that were cashed in and things like that. It was all factored in, but that was.
What was the coverage by?
I don't
Do you
think
know?
that,
I think that's pretty high,
One-
Jim, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay, understood.
Adult education, we're jumping up $10,000 in that area, why is that?
That's strictly to cover the state of Connecticut provides a grant that partially pays for the mandatory special education courses that have to be offered. And the state reduced that actually by $37,000. So we're only asking to cover $10,000 of that reduction from the state of $37,000.
And the next one down to substitute teaching interns, that's gone up 20 grand. Oh, this one
Yes.
because of the grammar school getting the same as the high school substitute
No.
pays? No?
No, this is actually, and
Oh, no,
Dr. Burt,
this is contracted.
Mr. Burt and Dr. Fieser can help me out on this one, but we have a contract with some of the universities
Right.
around here. They provide us with interns,
Right.
one for each building, and then those interns are used for substitute classes or to fill in wherever they're needed for each building. And the cost of those programs has gone up by this much from the universities that we use.
So for example, every school has at least one intern. Does the high school have more than one? I don't remember, but so you're talking right there, 14 interns. And they're here the 185 days of the year. So we gotta quote our bang for our buck for what we pay as opposed to a substitute in for that many days.
At what rate are they paid?
They don't get paid. We pay the university a fee.
Right, what is the university basing their figure on, do you know?
No, but it's a pretty standard figure, and it's been something that's been in place for years.
Is it much higher than, much lower than substitute pay?
It would be, well, yes, it would be less than a
Less than
substitute
nine,
pay.
something, whatever. What do we pay? No, you pay $271 if it's a full-time sub, right?
We pay $85 a day for high school. But then if they have a long-term assignment,
Right.
that's when it really
Goes
goes
to
up
271,
significantly.
right?
Elementaries, it's $70, $75, okay, $75 a day, the elementary and middle.
And these people are paid for the 180 school, they stay the whole year?
They stay the whole year, they do an internship, that's right. University of Bridgeport has interns, Quinnipiac, I believe, has interns. University of New Haven did, but they've eliminated their education program, so
And you have
they don't.
Fairfield,
They're
Sacred
building
Heart.
Sacred Heart.
Sacred Heart, correct.
Do we have the same number of, well, yeah, it's one for each school each year, and, okay. Right?
Again, there may be more at the high school, I just don't remember if there's two at each of the high schools, I just don't remember. I can find out
Each
about
high
it.
school and one at
Right.
the
Shouldn't they be paying us?
Well,
Shouldn't they be paying us? These students are getting credits for their courses.
it's a wonderful
There's something wrong with that
experience.
picture.
I hear you, but,
You hear me.
it's common in
No,
history.
very. Peter, this workers' comp, is it self-funded?
Yes,
It's self-funded, so you administer that?
we do.
You do, and you have an administrator, and,
Well, I believe Board of Ed, if I'm not mistaken, you're fully
Right.
insured, Board of Ed's fully insured, just the city that's self-funded.
oh, okay, so you go through a company, and this is your premium.
Correct. We use Kerma.
Okay, you use Kerma, okay. And BCBS over 65, that's just what, medical insurance?
That pays for the supplement for, everybody over 65 goes on to Medicare.
Right.
And then this pays for the supplement that they, that's bargained for in the contract before they retire.
Okay,
We pay for the supplement,
so this is the retirees?
correct.
Okay,
It's all retirees,
it's all retirees, and you go through Blue Cross and Blue Shield for this,
we do,
to buy this?
we do,
Okay, so that's just a premium right there.
correct. And it's offset by reimbursements. Some employees, some employee groups, there's many employee groups, and some employee groups have to pay some reimbursement. So we get reimbursement, and also the drug subsidy program, the federal drug subsidy program also pays us a reimbursement. So the cost of the premium has offset by reimbursements.
So is this number a net number, or,
It is,
That's
okay,
like,
so those reimbursements are included in this number?
correct.
They're offset, okay.
Yes.
did I read, oh, you did.
Yeah, gotcha.
Did I read with, this is gonna change, you're not gonna use this Blue Cross, right? Did I read that somewhere?
I don't think so.
That might be for the
Health insurance.
regular health insurance.
Sterling?
No, Sterling, the teacher retirees, now, as of our last contract with the teachers, they no longer go into our Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. They now go into the Teachers Retirement Board plan, which is administered by Sterling rather than Anthem Blue Cross. So as teachers retire, they're gonna start going into the new plan. But there's a very small number of teachers who have retired since the new contract took effect 2 years ago. So that number will build, but it only affects the teachers, not the other groups.
Who is under this Blue Cross over 65 then?
All retirees of the Board of Ed.
Teachers and all?
Mhm.
Okay. That's 111,000. Is that a contracted item?
No, it's premium. We basically, we work with our health insurance consultant. It's the same consultant that the city
Right.
has. We work with them, and we work with Anthem Blue Cross, and we get a premium. It's not the same as self-insurance, so it varies from the amount of self-insurance. It's strictly premium.
City,
The city is also under this Medicare supplemental.
It's not a
benefit.
self-insured
It's fully
either.
insured.
It's the same
Premium
program.
based.
One other area is on page 11, the Trumbull VOAG, going up 49,000, 106%. What is that?
That's also due to the decrease in the walking distance policy. Without getting into a long-winded explanation, up until 3 years ago, we always had 2 buses that went to VOAG. We approximately have 26 students that go to Trumbull VOAG, and by law, we are required to transport them. So up until 3 years ago, we had 2 buses. One took the east side of town, one took the west side of town, and they transported. When the board at that time told us we needed to find efficiencies in transportation, what we did was we went to a depot system, which meant that we weren't going to pick up neighborhood by neighborhood as we were doing. We were going to pick 5, 6, or 7 locations throughout the city, and we could reduce down to 1 bus. And the length of that bus, some students right now get picked up at, believe it or not, 5:50 in the morning, and they don't arrive at Trumbull VOAG until shortly after 7 o'clock. So, and also, because of where the bus company is located and where Trumbull is located, the first stop is on the east side of town. They're the ones that get picked up at 6:50 in the morning. And then they're the last ones to get dropped off in the afternoon, just because of the way the pattern goes. So some of those students have a 10-hour day that they're dealing with. So, but we're able to do it. With a 2-mile walking distance, we're able to find, I think right now it's 6 locations in the city that everybody can walk to within that 2 miles. And we're able to do it in that roughly 1-hour window of time. But when we go to the 1.5 mile, we no longer can, there's more students that have to be picked up, because there's more students that, we have to add designated spots. We have to add depots because they can't walk 2 miles anymore. And once we do that, we make the ride much too long for students to be on the bus. They're already on the bus for 1 hour and 10 minutes in the morning. We just can't add to that time and still get them to Trumbull by whatever time the start of the school day is. So we will need to add a second bus. That's the bottom line on it, which is where we were before. We were pushing the limits with 1. Once we reduced the 1.5 mile guidelines, we just no longer can do it. So that's the cost of an additional bus.
Would double it.
Yeah, it's 1 bus.
These are gonna be farmers. They're gonna know how to go out and milk a cow at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Come on, double our cost?
That's the way it always was.
It's
Up
our
until 3
choice
years
to-
ago, we had 2.
It's your board, huh?
It's not our choice, it's required.
Required by who?
State.
For the walking?
Oh, the
For the walking?
transportation.
The walking is a Board of Ed decision.
Correct, the walking distances, but the
So
program.
maybe these kids could be just, hey, you wanted the special program, why not?
You can't do that. You have to provide the same transportation policy guidelines for these students as you do. They're all Milford residents, and under the law,
You're not all going to Bouquet.
it's,
No, you're determining,
No.
you're stuck with it, I know,
yes,
but this is
if we could do it
ridiculous.
differently, we would, but under the law, we can't.
Boy, I'm not on the board of that. You probably are too. That's it on that, for the, that area.
I just have one quick question on, well, this is page 8.
Unit?
Are you adding immediate aid, one immediate aid? Yes, Roman numeral 8, media aid 1124.
No, but we took a media aid, had been being paid through Title I grant,
Okay,
and we had to move that position off and put it into the general fund.
I saw that there was one general aid being added, that's not a media aid? Or maybe that's the same, maybe that's what you're referring to. That's on Roman numeral 14. General aid, non-certified staff.
Yeah, I spent that up to 7 in 3 years.
Is that the one?
Correct, that's the
That's the
one.
one being moved off from grant
Yes.
onto budget.
Mhm.
How do we keep adding 2 1 year, 5 in 1 year, and now another one in 1 year? That's 8 since 2013 budget. Right.
Which ones?
On the general aids,
Yep,
we had 21 in 2013, 23, 2014, that's 2.
right, and that was,
Then we went up 5.
when we went to the reconfiguration, each elementary school, before we had 4 in the 3-5 schools, and then our request last year was to increase media aids at all elementary schools, because they all would be K-5. And the Board of Ed supported that, your board supported it, and the Board of Aldermen supported it.
These are media aids?
Correct. For the most part, there may be, there may be other aids that are in there, but media aids are included in that category.
When we were K2 through 5, the K2 had part-time media aides, and the 3-5 schools had full-time media aides. Well, then when reconfiguring this year, we thought, well, how do we have, some schools have part-time and some schools have full-time? So we made them all full-time media aides for the K-5 schools. So that was part of the increase.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, what is a tuition non-public? I know we asked that at the year, but I forgot from last year.
That is special education.
Okay, and that goes up, that's been going up, it goes up every year. Is that increased tuition, or?
Yes,
Sue can answer.
it is, it's increased tuition. Our number of students having major placements has remained pretty steady, but the,
Okay, so the number of students has stayed the same, but the
Correct.
tuitions keep rising.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, we can go back if somebody needs to, otherwise we'll start
Yeah.
with 1,000 series salaries, page 1. And again, the floor is open if anyone wants to make a comment or a question.
Just a matter of, in the technology area, like your people with the robotics and with your, I don't know what area this would be, but in general. You have a teacher that say, it's been around, I don't want to go by an age thing, but say they've been around 10 years. How do they pick up on this technology stuff if they have to teach it? What do they do?
We go for training.
They have to go up. Is that in the budget for that? Or do they have to do it on their own?
No, we would support their going for training. So for example, in some of the computer science classes, teachers may have to, whoever teaches AP computer science is gonna have some training in that. And, you know, if there was a new tech ed teacher coming in and was gonna be doing robotics or something, they would have to be trained. I don't know if you wanna add to that, Jeff.
There's multiple opportunities throughout the state and throughout the year to provide that training.
We have to pay for that.
Correct, that's under professional development.
It's in our budget here somewhere, right?
Yes.
While you were, is AP, college admissions now, what's the emphasis on AP compared to ACT?
They're two different things.
Right.
So the ACT is a test, like the,
Right.
it's like the SAT.
Right.
AP is advanced placement courses, and those are college level courses
Right.
that the college board approves.
Mhm.
And they're actually international, and so when those kids take those exams on May 5th for the social studies, for example, US
Mhm.
history, around the globe,
Mhm.
anybody who's in AP US history takes the exam on that date, you know.
Your experience of the colleges looking at APs now?
So it's interesting because we had someone at the board, actually, I think, was it the board, anyways, asked that same question. It varies by university, so a lot of universities will accept AP courses with a score of 3 or better, it's a 5-point scale, and grant credit. Some will not grant credit, but they will allow a student to skip a freshman course. So maybe if they pass the AP English literature, they wouldn't have to take freshman English, and they could move up to take a sophomore.
Okay.
But then there are other, schools that there are certain AP courses, doesn't make any difference, they won't take them. So, I mean, I can remember, Duke University, anybody who was majoring in science, pre-med, anything like that, didn't make any difference. If you got a 5 on the AP exams,
They
you
will.
had to take their courses in that track. So it varies by university.
In
Okay.
terms of college admission, however, that is, something that folks look for, that advanced coursework in your high school transcript.
Mhm.
Those college admissions officers like to see you challenge yourself with those courses.
We also require every one of our students in AP courses to take the exams. Not every high school
Mhm.
requires kids to take them, but we do.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And in your highlights, by the way, I think the statistics are very impressive. I think the number of students who've done well on the AP programs.
It's really growing, which is good.
Okay, we're on pages 1 through 9, so if there's any questions, salary section, comments?
While we're in that, the retirement and, I know you don't know the retirements, but the average number of retirements do we have? I know you have a,
We do, we use 18. The past 2 years have been anomalies. 2 years ago, we only had, 2 years ago, we had 28, and last year we only had 8.
8.
So, but if you take the two together, the
The
two-year
average.
average is 18. So that's the number that we use, and we think we're on track for that this year, based on the number of retirements that have already been announced, and ones that we think will happen.
How many positions in the administrative side of the house do we have unfilled right now? Any?
We have one interim, which is the academy. So there's an interim person in for the academy, and so we would post that again in May or June. Other than that, every one of the administrative positions.
They're all filled.
Yes.
Was that a position last year that we moved around? Did we do
Yeah,
something with that last
something
year?
like
What we did last year is we made it into a full-time
Full-time.
administrative position,
Okay,
is what we did.
and that person left?
No, well, it's Annalise Spaziano, and actually, she filled the position of supervisor of student development
Okay.
because that person left and went to Shelton. So she filled that position, and so we filled hers because it was December, I think it was anyways. We said we would do an interim for that position for the remainder of the year.
Okay, so that's the position that's open?
Will be open.
That will be open?
Right.
Okay.
Right. How many students we dealing there now?
Approximately 80 to 85 students there.
That's maximum usually, but because I remember you saying some days you may only have 50 in there, right?
We do.
60.
The
Yeah.
October 1 enrollment, do we list the academy here?
Yeah, I think.
Is in
you do.
here.
Yeah.
So, but they have,
It was 83, the October 1st.
I think it was
What
48.
page is that on?
Roman numeral 15.
Now, when they say, say you had only 30 people show up that day, what do we do? How many teachers do we have in there? That's what I was just looking for here.
I believe there's 6 teachers.
Right.
Classroom teachers.
That's right. 6.
You have 6, so 6 would be great for 85, but wouldn't be so hot for 30 or 40, right? And what does that teacher do? Just,
So what I would say is that they wouldn't have just 30 or 40. I mean, they could have, so think in terms of percents. So, we aim for 95+%, so their population is a little more challenging at times around absenteeism. But even if you had 20% of their kids not showing up, that's 16 kids. So if you look at it that way.
yeah.
And absenteeism is something that is a major focus at the academy, where they go after kids in a very positive way
Right.
to get them into school.
Very good, thank you, I appreciate that. Where are we, Brian? Thank you, Joe.
No, that's fine, it's more efficient that way, I think.
2,000?
So we'll move into 2000 series benefits, page 11. And we can go back to salaries if anything comes up.
What was the answer on workers' comp?
That's the premium. The premium went up. They contracted with an outside insurance company, and that's the premium that went up.
Was the experience that bad?
In which one?
Yeah, workers' comp, I'm sorry, Jim.
Yes. Yes, and we're working on
What are
that.
we getting hit on? Is it the maintenance people, or is it
No.
teachers, or is it
It's across the board.
across the board?
Across the board.
And we've had a couple of major cases. So that's all it takes is 2 or 3
Yeah, you're
major
right.
cases.
What's the mod rate?
I'm sorry?
The mod rate?
I'm not sure.
The EMR, what they multiply your premium by, your base rate.
We're self-insured
Premium.
for workers' comp.
No, not in the Board of Ed.
We're not.
No, they're not in the Board of Ed, so he has a mod rate from an insurance company.
I'd have to get that for you.
Yeah. If you had bad experience or you had a couple of bad cases, that rate's gonna go up, and that's gonna be a multiplier on your base premium. And that's what really hurts.
And do we have unemployment compensation for teachers?
We do.
You do?
Yep.
I can understand for the labor force, but
So that would only be if somebody leaves those, right?
Correct.
Right, not
For what?
if they leave. So it's not like teachers can collect unemployment during the summer. It's if they leave the system and they don't.
if they leave the system, we have to pay
Well,
unemployment?
if they
If you let them go,
If you let them go, not a
if you let
voluntary
them go,
place.
we pay. Oh, don't
But
let
some
them
people
go.
don't. I'm quoting you.
We're in trouble,
That's only a small percentage we have to pay.
You're on
that
camera, I
system.
want you to know that.
That's good.
3000 series contracted services, page 13 and 14.
Okay, under security services, how much is the SRO in that budget? You know, Jim, offhand?
Hold on.
Total budget of
4 SROs.
340.
Yep, 4 SROs, and we use 80,000 divided by 50%, so 40,000 times 4.
160,000.
Right.
That's current for,
Correct.
that's not the budget.
That's what would have been
Yes.
built in
For
this
security
year,
services.
for
The
this proposed
16,
budget.
17?
For the proposed, correct.
Okay, so that's, so we got 3 then, 120,000 last year.
No, there's
No,
4.
we had 4. We had 2, one at each high school, and then 2 that are
And floated.
split among the 3 elementary schools.
Okay, so we do
Middle schools.
160.
We added a security coordinator last year, right?
Correct.
Who would be
But that salary is under in the 1,000 series.
Right, that's what I'm trying to figure, how do you distinguish between the salaries in the 1,000 series, these are contracted, okay?
Correct, they're not employees of the board.
So your SROs are contracted, is that?
In effect, I mean, that's how we treat them.
You reimburse the city for that?
Right.
Okay.
Forget, we cut a check or do we just leave it to lapse into?
You cut a check to the city.
Okay. But you also have you have the security coordinator and 4 security guards who are actually employees of Board of Ed.
Correct, and they're up in the
On
1,000.
page 7.
What's this?
Page 7.
Oh, there we go. Mhm.
Okay. Facilities, 4,000 series, page 16. Pages 16 through 20.
Look for something like that.
Jim, that 15, 16 adopted is really low, correct?
In which line?
For heat and gas. That's the one that right now
Is underfunded,
is underfunded.
correct.
And that looks like it's gonna come in at 850, 860.
No, we anticipate that's gonna come in, well, if we take the 677, 300 and add approximately 94,000 to it, that's what we're projecting that we're gonna end up at for this year.
What was it? The 90 was through 2 quarters, right?
No, the 94,000 is what we projected to the end of the year.
Oh, to the end of the year, at the end of the second quarter, you projected that for the whole year?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, okay. I thought that's how you came up with the 180, you doubled it with the 90.
Correct. Say it again? Say it
I
again?
thought that's how you came up with the 180, you doubled the 90 because that was only for half the year.
Half a year.
No,
No,
No, we took where we are,
right,
we added the 29.3% that we didn't add into it, and we looked at our consumption, and we projected it out to the end of the year. We also took into account the, when we put the budget together, we only had October and November's bills, but we had a warm November and October, so there was less consumption. So we anticipate, that, to the best of our projections, that we'll be underfunded in that account by $94,000 at the end of the year. That's our projection.
so you're really going up another $80,000, $90,000 beyond that for next
Correct.
year.
Correct.
Mhm.
But you have to look at 15, 16, 216, 17, and that number is 181,000.
Okay.
On page 17, 4104, I note your energy conservation services, that contract, the term has expired in that contract?
Correct.
And then, did you experience significant savings under that program?
We did. Yeah. We present each year to the Board of Education in November or December, a complete wrap-up for the year on the energy conservation program. And to the best of my recollection, yeah, it was well over $1 million, somewhere in the 1.2 million, 1.3 million of saved cost over and above the cost of the program. It was an extremely successful program, and everything that we put into place, we need to continue so that we don't start to creep backwards again.
Now, what is the 100,000 then?
Well, last year, not last year, 15, 16, we knew that the contract had ended. So our obligation of $253,000 came to an end. So we asked the Board of Ed, your board and the Board of Aldermen, can we take a portion of what we would have spent on that program, the $253,000, and can we use approximately half of it to put into new infrastructure, energy conservation, energy saving infrastructure. So that's what the $127,000 that's budgeted in 15-16, that's what we plan to use that money for. We're currently working with different companies to look at what are, where we can best use that money for energy conservation saving. We're looking at everything from LED lighting to solar, and to see how we can best use that $127,000. And then we're requesting in this budget, less than last year, but another $100,000 to continue to build our energy conservation infrastructure.
Should we have that under another account?
Why?
That's not really the account for this. If you're gonna use it for infrastructure, it should be under supplies. It's a misnomer account, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but we wanted the board to know that this is money that we were spending on the EEI or the synergistics program.
Right.
Now we don't have that anymore, so we're only gonna use half of it, and we wanna put it into infrastructure. You know more about the accounting principles than I do.
Right.
But as long as you're consistent in your accounting, in where you're placing the accounts, the auditors recognize that. I believe, that.
He's consistent on the budget side, but I see where he's going. He may have to transfer that to capital outlay
At some point.
at some point.
Right, and that makes it very more confusing for us to make an analysis.
It's
from year to
easier this
year.
way.
Huh?
It's easier this way.
If
If we transferred it to, say, capital equipment, or if we transferred it to equipment, then it gets mixed in with everything else that we're spending
Well,
on equipment.
what I'm getting at, Jim, we have no idea if you're even gonna spend this money. We have no
We can be
area,
pretty sure that we're going to,
you're going to, but
yeah.
if you're in business, you just don't, pretty sure I'm gonna use this 100,000, but I don't know where.
Right.
Well,
We want to make sure that we're using it in the most effective way.
Right,
That's why we're working with consultants and experts, who do this all the time. And we're also looking at what reimbursements and what incentives we can get from the utility companies, because there's many incentives out there also.
Right.
So it all comes into the mix. We're gonna put it where we can save the most energy and get the most reimbursement and incentives from it.
Peter, this is an expense, correct?
yeah.
It doesn't go into a reserve, right?
No,
There's no reserve here, it's a one-year expense and that's it.
that's it.
Okay.
If they don't spend it, that's my problem, is how are you going to,
It's not a reserve, it doesn't
No,
go
it
into a
just-
reserve.
yeah, right.
account. It's just a one-year estimated expense. If they spend it, they spend it. If they don't spend it, right? That's it, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, when we make the decision of what's the best, what's the most effective way to spend it, then we're gonna spend it. We'll just use that as an example. Say we're gonna put LED lighting in every one of our schools. That's what we would spend it on, and it would come out of this account. As Peter said, it may have to go into, capital items
Or building maintenance.
right, for accounting purposes.
right,
But we wanted to isolate it so that
When you
you
spend
know.
yeah.
Once you spend it.
They
Correct.
have to,
Right.
do they do the same process, the Board of Education do the same process we do in the city budgets, transfer it?
They follow the same process. They have an encumbrance system, purchase orders.
Right.
Account transfers similar to the city.
So we don't see those though.
The board sees them. I believe that's
Yeah.
correct, Jim, that you would run those by the Board of
We did.
Education.
So in other words, let's say about half into the 16-17 year, we're not gonna spend the whole 100,000 this year. We can transfer 50,000 out of here?
The board could.
Right,
Yeah,
you can.
a vote of the board.
Before this thing. Because they do budget
Good.
transfers just like
Then,
we do.
you know what, we don't really have to do that. We could just leave this zero, if we have some surplus over here, then we can transfer it back here. I like going that way better.
All right. Okay. Repairs 19 and 20, building projects, ground projects, I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Oh, we did the transportation. How many vans do we have for,
3, and the fourth one is coming in very shortly.
Yes.
that's not that 55,000, that was a truck, no, never mind.
Yeah, no, this is
It's
special
strictly
education vans.
Okay. So how many drivers do we have?
We currently have 3 drivers.
3?
And we'll be hiring a 4th, so we'll be taking one of our paraprofessionals and turning him into a van driver.
I'm sorry, you know what?
The van drivers fall under the contract of the paraprofessionals.
Oh, okay. So we have 3 now. Where are they listed on the,
They are listed in the 1,000 section.
yeah, in this area?
And,
On page 8,
8, yeah.
1125.
So we have 116 under that area?
there are 116 paraprofessionals
Yeah.
in the district.
Mhm. English, well, right there, English as a second language, is that an adult education course?
No,
Is there a course of the school year? Well, it would be, yes.
no, this was for children who's.
Yeah. So the drivers would be under the special ed section there, okay, we have no breakdown as number of drivers or anything else.
Of this number of the 108.7,
Right,
3 of those currently are
3,
van
and-
drivers.
and you're saying you want one more though, right?
So when the 4th van is ready,
Yeah.
we'll transfer one of our current paras into that position. So we're not asking for an additional paraprofessional.
What are the paraprofessionals actually doing? Just assisting the teachers, or they actually teach?
They're actually working with individual students, and they're under the direction of a special education teacher, and they're directing them as far as what they need to do to meet their educational and behavioral needs.
So the number of students that would have a one-on-one para
Right.
assigned to.
These are actual teachers though, they're
No, these are paraprofessionals.
they're just they're not just.
Some actually do have a teaching certification.
They don't need it
But
though.
they're, correct, they do not need it.
And this is the total paraprofessionals in the system? No,
The 116, right?
the 100 is in the whole system,
Correct,
but 108 are in the special ed alone,
correct.
yeah.
And they're full-time, right? All of them are full-time?
They are.
And this is spread, the special ed is spread through the various 14 schools or whatever, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Going back to page 20, building projects. I see the total budget request is more or less, actually a little bit less. The high school line item went up significantly. Is there particular projects that are contemplated with those funds? Page 20.
20.
It looks like it was reallocated from middle schools to the high schools.
Yes. Yeah, if you look at appendix section, page A21, that gives you the breakdown of the projects that are being funded in this budget. So the big driver is at Jonathan Law. We're budgeting $150,000 to install a fire sprinkler system in the industrial arts wing, which was a code compliance issue that the fire marshal's office is asking us to take care of.
Okay.
You're not replacing the sprinklers, you're putting new sprinklers in.
Correct.
You never had sprinklers.
Correct.
Thank you. There's nothing else on buildings, I think that was, so the facilities, 5,000 series, transportation, tuition, and other support, starting on page 23. I think we spent a lot of time on this earlier, but if there's anything further.
These are tuitions, $5,600.
Jim, how much of the 5,600 account comes back to us from the state? Does any come back to us from the state?
It does. That's one of the frequently asked questions.
Number 12.
Yeah. Okay. So, appendix section, page A3.
Number 15, I should say, is the reimbursement fees.
Which is it?
Thank you.
Number 15 on A3.
Oh, A3.
In the appendices.
So last year, the excess cost grant goes directly to the city, and then we request from the city the amount that we need, that we cannot absorb in our own budget, of the deficit in the special ed account. So last year, we requested 900 from the city. I believe the total grant was somewhere in the range of 960. So,
This is one of the areas, though, that under the governor's budget at least, there's a reduction. Also, I don't know if you mentioned that out-of-school placements for the tuition costs, that goes up every year, but this year, the state support for places like ACES is going down under the proposed budget. Is that what's driving the increase under your budget, or is it just a tuition cost that normally happens?
It's the tuition cost that normally happens. The public out-of-district placements are like ACES and CES, but the majority of our placements are in the non-public. And those tuitions are increasing. I wish the governor had control over that.
and Joe, in the frequently asked questions, question number 12 does give you a number that the city received $946,000 in excess cost grant. We requested $900,000, so the city recognized a revenue item of $46,000, which was less than what was projected. I think we projected $100,000 last year, or maybe $50,000 last year. So.
I think number 14 is also enlightening because people many times don't understand the tuition range for out-of-district placement. So this range is for our kids. This isn't like for the state. This is for Milford students who are placed out.
But other school districts in the state also send their kids here, right?
Correct.
So this says that one student could have a
hard to keep students in district.
Huh?
Which is why we work really hard to keep students in district.
Yes. That's where your paraprofessionals come really in hand, right?
The paraprofessionals, the special education teachers, the
Right.
support staff.
Right. But you can't do it without the paraprofessionals helping you.
Correct.
Right. What do they have? One area is in the telecommunications, what are we covering under that? Is that the Wi-Fi's? I'm sorry, this is on page 24, 5401. What drives that cost mainly? That's 5401.
If you look at page 28,
Yeah.
I think the description.
No, I'm sorry.
27.
Yeah. I'm this week.
Telephone charges, trunk lines, lots lines, as well as any modifications or repairs to the telephone system. For the past 3 years, we've been phasing in voice over IP system.
Mm.
We completed that this past summer at the 2 high schools, so now that project's over. So we hope that our telecommunications costs will go down as a result of that in the future.
So we're still budgeting 322 for this year.
Correct.
And what's the major cost there? I mean, if we got the high schools pretty much done or not?
The high schools are done now, but we don't know what the savings is going to be yet.
So in 13 and 14, we actually didn't get into any of this stuff then.
Correct.
That's really what's coming down, right? Is this involving the internet? No.
Yes,
Well, the VoIP, yeah.
there are costs in here that we pay for the internet, yes.
There is.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry.
6000 series, education supplies, page 29.
Warren having a special graduation thing going on, or what? You get more than Johnny Law, I mean, come on, we gotta keep people here. How do we jump?
Yeah.
It's $1,100 more.
This was also one of the questions.
Mhm.
Yep. And,
Guilty.
I know some of it has to do with that there's more
Oh, stupid.
acreage at Warren than there is at Law, just in terms of, monitoring, security, et cetera, because of just the design of the facilities. That's, I remember, was one reason, Jim.
Yeah, both schools handle graduation slightly differently. They're not exact. And they also supplement graduation costs with things like fundraising, with student dues. And so that's why there could be a discrepancy between the two. One school may hire more officers. That's a major cost, is the security for those events. And I don't know this for sure, but
Right.
Warren may hire more security guards or police officers. But there is a question that was answered.
It's on page, so Jim, in your questions, was number 27.
Yes.
The board had asked what's the difference in the expense. And basically, both schools do not have the exact same expenses. There's going to be some variation. For example, the number of police, the number of rentals, the number of diplomas, the number of programs, which could contribute to the difference in the
I'm
cost.
just curious. I say the remain, except in 13-14, there was a spread. And then 14-15 is about even, 15-16, so-so. And then we jump 1,100, from 700 to 1,100. Who's throwing this into the budget? The individual principals?
Correct. Most of the, a lot of the 6,000 accounts, that is funded through what we call the per pupil expenditure. And that's how we try and equalize the amount of money that's spent per pupil. And the principals have discretion over how they spend that money. So one principal may spend it a little bit differently than another principal does. One school may have a different replacement schedule for, whatever particular supply that they need. And so one year, they may be spending more money on one thing than the other principal does, but, in future years, the other principal may spend differently. So that's why you're in the 6,000 accounts, it's very hard to compare school to school, because they have different needs each year. And much of it is at the discretion of the principal. That's the one area where the principals have some discretion over the budgets in their particular buildings.
But per pupil expenditure is roughly the same throughout the system.
It's the same for elementary, although adjusted slightly for those schools that have larger populations or enrollments, and slightly adjusted for those schools that have pre-K in the buildings. But middle school is exactly the same, and the high school is exactly the same. Academy is a little bit lower than the high schools because the needs are less than high schools.
Anything on 32?
It just was,
Go ahead, Jeff. I mean,
33 on the
yes,
testing. This is 36. I read this. Why did we have that big jump in 14 and 15? That's an enormous jump. I can't remember why. In the testing area,
To 15, 16, from 14, 15.
14, 15, 15, 16, yeah.
Well, again, it's primarily to do with some of the state testing but we're also supporting our students in 10th and 11th grade with PSAT, especially since we're now moving, if you're aware of it, all juniors now, instead of taking the Smarter Balance Assessment, or SBA or SBAC, all of our juniors actually on March 2nd will be taking the SAT. As we believe that we're going to move to that direction, so we thought it would be good preparation for our students, but also submit information for us, for all of our students to take the PSAT in 10th and 11th grade in October. So that's one piece of this jump. In addition, we also pay for AP exams. As Dr. Beazer said, we do require that all of our students take it, so we do pay a portion of it. And as what happens is as you saw from the highlights, that the number of our students have increased, as have the number of tests that they're taking. So there's just been a steady increase in numerous areas under this line.
So the students don't pay for their own AP exams?
They pay a portion of it.
Why not the whole?
It's something that's been in existence here for, I don't know how long. It's not, I didn't institute it, it was in place, it's been for years and years.
Even the SATs?
No, SATs, it used to be that the students paid for that themselves,
Right.
because they would come on a Saturday and take it. And
Right.
now the state will be paying for it because that's a state mandated test.
The state's paying for it?
The state will pay for that.
We get a grant on that? A reimbursement on that?
You send us the
No,
materials.
they,
I don't know that we know yet how much it's going to be.
they
but-
provide the testing to us.
Oh,
And then we administer it,
all right.
which is the same for the Smarter Balance, grades 3 through 8. We don't pay for those tests. Or the CMT science, that's all paid for by the state.
So this
This is
is,
testing that we do in district, so in district in the sense of the advanced placement, we give that in district. That's something we those are options that are provided to our kids to take those courses and then take the exams, and so we pay for those exams. We also use an internal, an exam, just standardized, which is what's called the NWEA, and that's given in,
3 times a year.
and that's in which grades, is that?
It's K through 10.
Okay, so,
K through what?
K through 10th grade.
10. Oh, yeah, then 11 to 12 go for the PSATs and those others. How much of the AP do we pay? Half of it? 10% of it?
we can get that, I don't
We can get
remember.
that,
I can get you that information.
And would there be some students who would pay the whole thing, possibly?
Yes.
Okay.
$7,000 series equipment, page 38.
Now, under the computers, is that where the Chromebooks are being located? Chromebooks be under the computers? Do our students get any computers just assigned to them, period? In the high school, middle school, anywhere? Nobody
No.
gets computers?
There's no one-on-one, in other words.
Laptop or anything? I mean, laptops?
No, special education, there might be
Yeah, there may be some students who have individual iPads or other type of technology,
Right.
but just because of their specific needs.
We chose not to go to one-to-one computing. Some districts have, where every single, because first and foremost, we don't feel we're ready to do that. If we were going to choose to do that, if you asked the question about teachers getting trained,
Mm.
we would want to have all of our teachers trained sufficiently in order to do that. But we also still wonder whether it's needed. So we've been very cautious in moving in that direction.
Yeah, like you've got your Bill Gates coming and saying, here's your da-da-da-da. You really wouldn't, it's not a free thing, really, when it comes down to it, because you have to get people trained and,
And we don't want computers or technology for the sake of computers or technology. We want it so that people are using it really to increase learning.
okay.
The spend in central admin for equipment.
Yes.
Jim?
Jimmy, is that in, on 821? I'm looking on 821, I
No, that's
I'm trying to find it.
the city applied for an emergency, an emergency management grant through community development, and received the grant. This is for a generator that'll be placed at Jonathan Law, because Jonathan Law is the primary shelter in an emergency. The current capabilities of the current generator at Jonathan Law, first of all, it's getting old, it's over 20 years old. It needs repairs from time to time, and it eventually will outlive its life's usefulness. So it makes sense for us to put a new generator at Jonathan Law. So the city applied for the grant. The state pays for 75%, and this is the 60%, which is the local share of that grant.
Would that be
New generator at Law.
I'm sorry.
So the state's gonna give us 75%.
Correct.
So if it costs 100,000, they're gonna give us 75,000.
Correct. The estimated cost is $215,000, so the 25% is $53,750, but we built in a contingency into that. We included $60,000 in the budget to pay for the installation and the local share of that grant.
Okay, so a generator really costs 215,000.
Correct. Yeah, it makes really good, it makes excellent business sense, because soon we're gonna need a new generator at Jonathan Law, which we'd have to pay for ourselves. The city went out and found a grant through emergency management, so that the school system will have the benefit of that grant, you know, in any emergency, but if sheltering is needed, you know, the capabilities of this new generator are much greater than what currently exists now.
Now, you're only using that strictly for the sheltering situation or the other situations?
No, it would be used anytime that we lost power.
Okay, so the school would be using it outside of sheltering, okay.
Correct, that's our central kitchen,
Mhm.
so we have a huge freezer at Jonathan Law.
Yeah.
So we need to keep that going. Plus, all of the new security systems that we have in place, some of those would be able to keep going. We'll be able to power not only what currently can be powered is the cafeteria and the kitchen. The new generator will be able to power the cafeteria, the kitchen, the auditorium, and one of the gymnasiums, so that there's greater capacity for sheltering. And in addition, if we lost power in the winter, we're able to keep water flowing through the pipes, which could, if we had an extended time in the winter, those pipes could freeze, they could burst, and we saw what happened in Orange a couple of years ago. Burst pipes and then the resulting air quality issues and things like that. So, you know, it's a more powerful generator that we have, which will serve the sheltering capability of the city, but will also serve the school system very well.
Do all our schools have generators? No.
I believe, off the top of my
Was
head.
sure?
No, I believe Law, Foreign, and I believe Harborside.
8,000 series, page 40, all educational, all other educational support. Pages 40 and 41. Go back if there's any questions. Grant detail, I think, more informational than anything, but page G1.
Do you have a grant specialist in the system? Who goes after the grants? How do you determine which grants to go after?
Well-
Is it through communication to the
Correct.
NEA or whatever?
Yeah, through, each department would, you know, be responsible for researching their own grants. But what you see on page G1, those are entitlement grants that,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that we receive or we don't receive, depending on what the funding level is at the federal and the state level. The competitive grants that you see are those which we.
You have to go after, right?
Correct.
How do you know if you're getting them? That's the thing I'm getting at. You know, we have conservation guy, what, Johnson?
Steve Jones,
Yeah,
open space.
the open space, he got a full-time job because he goes after grants. And, you know, I'm just wondering if we have somebody of that nature within the system,
We don't.
you know?
Yeah.
So we don't know if we're getting all the grants that we could possibly get, but,
We know that we're getting all the grants that we're entitled to.
yeah, that's easy.
Yeah. And, you know, from time to time, a couple of years ago, we took advantage of a technology grant from the state. We, all of us through our professional organizations and through CAVE, the Connecticut Associations of Boards of Education,
Right.
there's a tremendous amount of knowledge that, and information that comes to us through those organizations as to what's available and what's out there.
Mhm. I don't know.
Sometimes I was gonna say our supervisors will go after particular grants, so even like the technology grant, it was the IT folks along with our supervisor for library media services, they wrote that grant,
Mhm.
and it was $350,000, I think,
Right.
that was brought in. There's also been smaller grants, there's been a couple of new courses, like, I'm thinking of a finance course that was introduced, I think, 2 years ago, that was grant funded, the starting monies, could have been $15,000, that was one of the supervisors. I know that Justine has written some,
For the
Where the-
career pathway, where we have training, as you were asking
Oh,
before,
yeah.
we actually have a grant for that training as well.
Oh, okay.
so there's smaller grants that we go after. I mean, systems do have grant writers, and there are
Right.
real benefits to grant writers. That has not been I don't know if Milford has ever had a grant writer. So we look.
Mhm.
There's some that we have to bypass just because we don't have the personnel to really,
The time is.
And a lot of the grants are also collaborative, so maybe ACES, who's our state service center, maybe the fiscal agent for it, and it'll involve then several districts, so we may join in with them to be part of
Mhm.
some of the grants. So some of our grants in the summertime for summer programs, interdistrict grants, come because we affiliate with ACES, and so we would get some monies that way.
No app out there, huh? You got apps and everything, so.
Whose responsibility is it to make sure we apply for all the grants we're entitled to, or that are competitive, or that come up? I mean, is there one person that notifies people, that's kind of like a clearinghouse for, and will tell this person and the various people what to apply for? I mean,
Well, again, if it comes in through the Superintendent's Association,
Mhm.
Dr. Feaser would get that and pass it on. If it comes through my organization, which is the Connecticut Association of School Business Officers, we would pass it on.
but there's no one person that,
Would you like to add that position for us?
huh?
No.
Because occasionally you read in the paper that, some municipalities do miss grants, they
Sure.
miss deadlines, and they don't get the money. So, I was just wondering if someone had that responsibility, or,
Currently, no.
okay.
Okay, I think we're just about done, but if there's anything in the appendix that anybody would like to address? We'll do so now. More or less a summary, I think, of what we've gone over on the budget line items, but if there's any particular questions, or if representatives of the Board of Ed have any further comments, they can certainly address the board.
Those questions have a lot of useful information in them, from the back in the appendix. And I would just add that if you have any additional questions that come up as you're deliberating or going through the budget book in more detail, be sure to reach out and ask administration about it. We want to make sure you have thorough understanding.
The instruments, I noticed this one, these are replacement instruments we're going under? I have
Page
program 112.
22.
It's on page A22.
So
Your
some of
trombone,
these-
clarinets, and
I would say that a lot of, a number of these instruments are new instruments. Because our programs, so for example, our strings program has increased exponentially, so that we now have a small orchestra at each of the high schools, which didn't exist 5 years ago. There was no orchestra. And then also the bands are expanding, and some of them may be replacement. But you can see all the ones at the top with Jonathan Law and Foreign.
Right.
The cost of the instruments can be very,
Very
very
expensive.
very-
Do we lease instruments, do you know offhand? No?
No, we do.
Don't know that.
No lease?
Individual students do.
They do?
Yeah,
Okay.
but if it's an instrument that's a district instrument, we don't lease it, we buy it.
If it's an instrument, what?
if it's district-owned, we would purchase it, we wouldn't lease it. But if, I remember when my daughter was in the band at Cap Penn, we rent her a clarinet, or
Right.
leased her a clarinet.
Mhm.
And many, most, I think most parents do
That's
that.
what I thought, and when I saw this as an expense item, I was looking why too.
But the ones, and correct me if I'm wrong, the ones that are at the schools are for those children who can't afford to lease one or buy one on their own.
And some of them, as you can see, are very expensive items.
Right.
That would be, cost prohibitive for some students.
You get a used one, you don't need that. You're terrible. Thanks, Jeff.
They've been doing their best with some of the older equipment.
Yeah, I bet you
They get
have.
Every,
Yeah, right.
every inch out of those things. You know,
That's it. I'm all set.
Okay, well, thank you all for your time
Thanks
this
a
evening
lot.
and your patience.
Appreciate it very much.
And for your information. Thank you. So we will have a motion for recess until,
So moved.
moved, a second by Mr. Fitzpatrick. All right, second. Lauren seconded, and we're in recess until Monday, the 22nd.
Yeah, that wasn't very nice of you.
We never meet Monday.
Because that's a prep game. A rescheduled prep game. Sorry about that.
Or do we have our,
We got regular meeting.
6:30. Do we have anything on the agenda?